Some of you may know I've been working on some projects to analyze some of my media consumption habits. For those of you out there who are Facebook friends with me, I posted a few weeks ago around my podcast listening history. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a similar thing I did for my YouTube watch history. I will go through some of the actual output of the project, which is basically looking at how much YouTube I watched, what types of channels I watched, and then I'll finish it up by going through a few just lessons and takeaways from this whole project. Okay, with that, it is now time to show you some of the output of the project. So the first thing we are seeing here is some data around how much I have been watching YouTube per day over time. According to this, I started out a little bit higher in 2017. I guess I got busier and busier 2018, 2019, and then in 2020 and then 2021, major uptick. I attribute a lot of this to being at home a lot and during the pandemic, and that's that. As I'm about to show you, I don't feel that bad about this because I believe a lot of what I'm actually watching is stuff that's like good or interesting or that I can learn from. So we'll see that in a second. One note is that this is probably a little bit overstated in terms of the actual number of hours that I'm watching. And this is because the way the YouTube data is collected, it can't distinguish between a video that I have fully watched or a video that I've partially watched. So there are some videos in here basically that I probably only partially watched, but it's counting like the full watch time. So in 2021, it's saying that I am watching about 2 hours per day. I would guess that's more like 1.5 hours if I had to really guess. But I think the most important thing is the increasing over time due to the pandemic. All right, and then the main thing I want to show, and this is kind of the money chart that shows for 2021, all of the things that I have been watching coded by category. So these are the columns are the different categories, and then the boxes are the individual channels and creators that I follow. So the first thing I'll call out is that there is a lot of stuff on here. And you can see there's like some that are even too small for me to have even labeled on the chart. As you see in the top right, this is 439 hours of watch time so far this year as of a few days ago. And this is not on the chart, but if you're curious, this is about 530 unique creators and channels in here, 530 unique boxes. And there's a bunch here in this other category. And this is a lot. And if you've seen my post before on my podcast listen history, that was only about 50 podcasts that I've listened to, which is still a lot, but this is like 530, 10 times as much. So that's kind of my first reaction to all of this. The second thing I'll call out is just the actual categories of things that I watch. And I was having a conversation with a friend today and telling him a little bit about my YouTube watch history. And he asked me, what kinds of channels do you watch? And I said, because I've done this analysis and I know, a lot of what I watch is like productivity and personal development. And he was like, oh wow, that's not what I expected. I expected you to say like cat videos or something, which is interesting because I think that's probably what a lot of people watch on YouTube. What's even more interesting to me is I have talked to a lot of my friends about just what types of channels they watch, what types of content they watch. And when they tell me what they're watching, I am almost always surprised about what it actually is because they start naming channels that I've just never even heard of. So I'll talk to one friend and I'll get that reaction. I'll talk to another friend and they will tell me a completely different set of channels from what I watch and also from what, the other people I've talked to have watched. It's just interesting that there's so much diversity on YouTube and you can really kind of make your own internet, essentially. So now let me just tell you a little bit about some of these categories and what I watch. The first and largest category at 91 hours is this productivity and personal development category. Biggest one here is this guy named Ali Abdaal, which I started watching, I think last year. He makes a lot of videos around apps to use, books that he's read on different like productivity mindset topics, how to be more productive with your time, etc. So I really like this channel. And then there's a bunch of other channels here that I think are different flavors of productivity, self-improvement, and mindset that I just personally feel like I learned from and that have actually helped me in my actual life. The second category I'll call out is the news and current events. And this is one note. I don't have like all the historical data for this one because it's a little bit messy, but I can tell you that this category is bigger this year and last year than it was earlier. Like if you go back to 2017, this is a much smaller slice of the pie, and I attribute a lot of this to just, again, being at home last year, trying to figure out what's going on with COVID and COVID news and racial tension in the US and lots of reason to be attracted to the news last year. And the thing I'll call out here is that there's actually like a diversity of different content here. So there's not only, so I lean liberal, and there's definitely a couple of more the liberal sources, such as Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Real Time with Bill Maher. But I've also been making an effort to just diversify what I consume. And so I've added a couple of like conservative people to my consumption as well. And the biggest one is Ben Shapiro, which I wouldn't say that I agree with most of what he's saying, but it has actually helped me just see things from a different angle. And I think I just have a more balanced view on a lot of topics because of that. Third category here is lifestyle. And this is a little bit of a random grab bag of things. A lot of these people are doing just kind of vlog style, talking about their lives. Joe Lee is a good example of that, where he just kind of like vlogs what he's doing every day. Sometimes has some just kind of like lessons and just like advice and things around like minimalism and mindset and things that kind of fall into the productivity and personal development category as well. I think that this category is interesting just because it's my version of reality TV. I don't really watch reality TV, but this is my a little bit just seeing what other people's lives are like, and I just find it really interesting. Fourth category here is videography. This is also a category that has been new in the last couple of years, just as I have started to adopt videography as one of my hobbies, as evidenced by this YouTube channel and this video that you're watching right now. And what I think is cool about this is, there's several different creators here who are talking about things like the cameras they use, the techniques they use, how they think about writing a script for a YouTube video. What I think is pretty amazing is that there's so much information out there and so much like high quality and entertaining information that you can really learn, I think, almost anything on the internet and through YouTube in particular. The next category is TV and movies. If you know me, you know I'm a big fan of TV and movies. And so there's a couple different types of channels in this category. The first is Corridor Crew, and then related is Corridor Cast. What this channel mostly does is actually reviews of the visual effects and special effects of different movies. Because if you know me, you know I love visual effects and special effects. They are literally just looking at scenes from different movies that were visual effects, critiquing, the good ones, the bad ones, talking about the techniques that they think went into them. And so I just love this stuff. It's the biggest category, as you can see here. And then the other ones, such as David Chen, Jeremy Johns, Chris Stuckman, these are all just basically people reviewing different movies and TV shows. And so one thing I've gotten into is really not only watching the TV and movies themselves, but I end up listening to like quite a bit of content, watching quite a bit of content, people discussing, reviewing, theorizing what's going to happen next. And so for like every 1 hour of a TV show, I'm probably listening to like another 1 hour of reviews. And in my book, it just like makes me get a lot more out of the things that I'm watching and consuming, and just makes it a lot more fun. And then the next category I'll talk about is science and health. ZDogg MD, JAMA Network, Dr. Mike Hansen. These are all people largely talking about COVID. And I don't know how good this has been for me, but they're talking about the science of COVID and the vaccines and like whether the masks work. And I think it's good because I feel relatively more educated, hopefully, on just how some of this stuff has been working, assuming that the information that I get is actually kind of accurate, which I hope it is. And I just find it interesting because I like science in general. And so this is cool stuff for me to listen to as well. And then the one other little sliver I'll call out here is this little channel called, and I don't really know how to pronounce it, but I'm gonna say Kurzgesagt. I think it's a German word, and it's really small on here, but it's one of my favorite channels. Basically, they've got these cool animations talking about different topics in science and health. So like, for instance, they'll have a video like explaining black holes, or there's a video that's in my queue to watch right now that I haven't watched yet, but the next video, the most recent one that they put out as of this time, is one on how the immune system works. And so I'll watch that, and it's gonna be super entertaining and super good, and hopefully I'll be smarter after it. So those are the major categories. You can see that there's some tech, which is basically reviews of different tech products, some fitness stuff. Like this fitness category used to be a lot bigger years ago when I was like really into learning a lot of this. And I still like fitness, but I just don't watch as much YouTube on it. and then programming and learning. So there's some MIT OpenCourseWare where I think I've been taking a class on Bitcoin and blockchain, which I will probably have a video on that here in the next little bit. But yeah, that is the watch history. Okay, so now what does this mean? What are my takeaways from this? The first thing I'll say, and I kind of mentioned this before, but what I was showing there was 530 different unique channels. Most of those are individual creators, just like one person or maybe like a couple people, everyday Joes, everyday Janes who are just making videos. And I think it's really empowering to think that everyday people can now do this, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing this now. And it's also really cool because, these people are all talking about different topics, whether it's productivity or fitness or whatever it might be, but they're also bringing a lot of their personal life into it. And after you watch, a few hours of some of these videos, you feel like you're getting to know these people, which is also just interesting. It's a little one-sided, and then they don't know you, so that's a little weird, but I feel like I now know 530 different people, at least a little bit, which is cool to think about. The second thing that I just reflect on is that everyone's, consumption patterns are unique. Like I just showed you the types of channels I watched. Like I was saying before, my guess is that maybe some of those channels you watch, probably most of them you've never heard of. You may be surprised to even see the categories that I watch. I would probably be surprised to see the categories that you watch if you watch YouTube. And so it's just interesting to think that there's so much diversity out there that everyone can have kind of their own version of YouTube and their own version of the internet in general. They talk about echo chambers and people on Facebook and having their own reality within Facebook just based on the individual things that are being shown to them. And I think that this whole YouTube thing and just what I showed you is probably a good case study of that. And then the third is that, and this is just on a more personal note, this was just super fun to put together, bringing together just different skills that I've developed over time, and then just different interests, and I love YouTube in general. And so just if you're looking for hobbies, I highly recommend that you get one. This has just been really great, really fun for me, putting me in a state of flow, good for my mental health. So I recommend hobbies as well. All right, that's all I wanted to do for this video. So as usual, if you like this video, hit the like button, which will help others find it, and then subscribe for more. All right, that'll do it for this video. Peace.